Just checking, Cassidy.
No worries. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm just going to give it one more minute. Oh, it's 2 o'clock, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started, just being mindful of everyone else's time. This is Terry Fisher. I'm the Operations Director at the EIIC. I also support the disaster domain and the research domain here. And I also help with conference planning. So that is why we're talking. We're all very excited that we're able to actually offer a poster session this year at the conference. I know that there has been some desire to do this in the past, and this year we're going to make it happen. I also want to take this opportunity to talk. This is going to be intended more towards folks who've never done one of these before, but also to try to take any of the intimidation factor out of it. So poster topics that we're looking for. So we're looking about quality improvement projects that you may have taken on, demonstration projects, storyboards, or research. If you have some research, we'll definitely take those. So we're open to just about any kind of poster idea you might like to submit. Only caveats are it has to make sense. You have to have some real results you want to share. Has to relate to the work in the EMSC space. And it's something that someone else might be able to look at and try to do as well, so being duplicative, which I know is kind of a research thing, but just think about that when you're formatting or thinking about what you might do, that how can you present it in such a way that if someone else saw this, they could say, hey, I want to try that, and then they could. So there's some essential components to a poster. And again, as I said, if this isn't research necessarily, this applies across the board. So your poster composition is banner at the top. That's where you put your title. In the title, you want to have the names of all the people who should be receiving some kind of credit for the work. I have authors there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's written something, but if they've had some important part in the project that you're trying to highlight, you definitely want to list them and list their credentials. And also there you want to put in the sponsoring organization, who was sponsoring the project at the time that it occurred. You want to have the background of the project, what it was all about, what the purpose and goal of the project was, why you decided to do it, what you hope to achieve. And here is a sample layout that I saw. This is from actually a nurse practitioner's publication, but I thought that it was a nice layout. Actually, it looks like I missed one. Sorry about that. Here we go. Sorry, guys. So other poster components. So you want to have the methods. And again, in a non-scientific sense, the methods are who you wanted to try to interact with and who you were hoping to have some effect on, what the intervention was, what the project was, and how you were able to tell if it was effective or not, and maybe how much effect it had. It could be change in behavior, change in process. It could be a lot of different things that you might want to highlight there. And then the results, what was the effect? And finally, your conclusions, was it what you were thinking you were going to get? And also, what would you do different the next time if you had an opportunity? So now I can show you guys this other slide, which I stole from a nurse practitioner site. I thought this was a nice flow to it because it's not a typical research poster layout, but this is just one idea, and you can see how things are all laid out there, the logo, how you might make the information flow. And poster size for this conference should be a 4 by 6. And I have not said specifically that it should be 4 by 6 in landscape orientation, but I will add that, so that would be the preference. So another thing to think about when you're looking at this, you've got to maintain the white space. I want to definitely use a lot of graphics if you can that are appropriate. You don't want to crowd things. And those graphics can be pictures, they can be illustrations, they can be charts, anything like that. Just be sure that you actually have permission to use it before you do. I'm going to have to give this back to Cassidy. I keep going ahead. Okay. So now I'm going to go over each of the components of the poster. But before I do that, do any of you have any questions that I might be able to address now? Okay. So on the poster title, you want to remember that the title is one of the best ways to sell what you're doing. It should make someone want to come over and visit your poster and talk with you about it. It needs to be short, and it needs to be understandable to a broad audience. So especially in a non-scientific community, you want the title to essentially tell a synopsis of what the entire project is about, like a newspaper headline. You have about 10 seconds to make an impression to sell your work, but you also don't want to oversell what you've done. You want to keep it realistic. And of course, be creative. It's the lag. That's what I'm having a problem with. Okay. The background section of the poster is where you're going to tell us, so you think of it as a very, very short story about what it was that you were trying to have some effect on, why you wanted to, what was going on that made you want to make a difference. And later I'll have just a made-up example about properly restraining children in the vehicle. If there's a personal component around why you decided to take on this project, that's a good thing to share when you're talking with folks who are coming to visit. It may not fit in the background section of the poster. But one thing you should consider in writing the background is, what was it about the circumstances that made you think it was a good time to try to make a change? Was it seem like maybe the community was ready? Something has happened and you have this tool that they really would love to have. So it can just be the timing, it could be funding, it could be someone came to you and asked for you to look into this, so anything like that. And this is also a very good place to cite your statistics if you have some. And here's a statistic I cited from the journal Pediatrics, which is 43% of children who die in car crashes were improperly restrained. So our next item are the purpose and the goal, or the aim. So you want to explain here what you thought your intervention would do. It doesn't mean that that's what actually happened, but this is where you want to say, I wanted to do this because I thought this would happen. You want to give some rationale why you thought it was a good one to try. Maybe you had seen it done in another setting, another tool been used that's similar, that seemed to work well. So you want to give some information about why you thought this was going to work in this situation. And then you want to also state in very understandable terms the overall objective of the project using SMART language. And SMART language is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So SMART goals and aims, here's an example. This is one I've just made up as an example. So you might put on your poster that you had planned by March 31st of 2020 that an EMSC office of Kansas will increase the percentage of properly installed car seats by some percentage, let's say 3%, in metro area of some city. So this goal is specific. We're going to increase the percentage of properly installed car seats. It's measurable. You've set an amount you're hoping to increase that by so you can measure it when you're done. It's focused on one area rather than an entire state or country, making it achievable. So you've got this one little section of a metro area maybe or whatever the situation may be so that you have a little more control around it and you have an opportunity to have an effect. It has to be relevant. And as just cited, the evidence suggests that children who are properly restrained are more likely to survive a motor vehicle accident. And it has to be time-bound, which in this case the project will end by March 31st, 2020. The next section you're going to talk about your methods. So the methods are essentially what did you do? How did you do it? Why did you pick that? Why did you choose the folks that you decided to work with? Why were they the individuals or community or process that was ready for some kind of change? And then how did you do it? And I guess to me the most exciting part are the results. What happened? What did you get? So if you went back to the example that I made up about increasing the percentage of car seats that are properly installed, you would go back and say, okay, my target population was all preschoolers or all children attending the Head Start program at X school, let's say. So you'd want to know how many of them there are. Let's say there's 50. And you'd want to say here how many of them were you actually able to have some contact with. Either you spoke to them or they participated in a program or you actually physically did something to help with the installation of the car seat. You want to list that there. And then you also want to talk about not just the ones who participated, but maybe how many, let's say there are 50 and 20 of the parents just said, no, we don't want to participate in that. So then you have 30 folks in your sample. It's important to talk about that because that has an effect on your results. And then if you have anything else about the group that you're working with, maybe their average age, if you're keeping track of the parents in this case, because you'd have to have that kind of permission. Parents' marital status, what their education is, what their income. This is getting a lot more sophisticated. It may not be something that you actually collected, but it's always good data to have because it tells us a little bit about our audience, and it's good for the next person who might want to try it. They might say, oh, this worked really great with this particular group. I want to target that group too, or maybe I want to change it a little bit and try something a little different with a different group. And finally, your conclusions, which did what you were hoping to do happen? And if it didn't, why? Why do you think that happened? Why do you think it didn't work the way you want it? Or why do you think it worked exactly as you want it? And then finally, there's a chance to reflect in your conclusions. So if you had the chance to do this all over again, what would you do differently? And that's particularly important for replicability, so other folks can know where you had your barriers, what you might change based on what you've learned so that they might avoid those when they try to do it themselves. And then when you're reviewing your poster, you've got everything all together. You want to make sure does everything flow logically? Is all the text readable? These are all very practical things are the graphics are very good quality, especially when it comes to printing. So they may look really nice on your template, but when they're printed, they may not look quite so great. You want to make sure you can be able to see the text from a distance. Can it be read? You want to be careful about what contrast colors that that you use to kind of bring some attention to it. The font type. If you look at any data that you've presented, do I understand it immediately? Can I look at it and it makes sense to me? I can figure it out. All the charts, tables, and graphs should be able to be looked at and understood in a few seconds. If you skim your poster, does the information you most want to share stand out? Think of the casual observer, someone who doesn't know what you're working on, and they take a quick glance at your poster and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. And yeah, let me talk to you a little bit more about what you did. We have some information here on printing your poster. This is information that my colleague Cassidy has collected, and those are hot links to those sites on general costs for having it done if you don't have an in-house way of doing it. You can go to the UPS store, FedEx store. I'm not familiar with scientific poster printing, but I'm sure you can take a look at that, the average cost of it. And you're not really going to be able to print the poster on site at the conference. You will need to print it beforehand and bring it with you so that you can display it there. And then finally, you guys are going to get a bunch of time back. Finally, we're creating some poster submission processes. So the solicitations for poster submissions. So everyone who signed up for the conference got essentially a solicitation there asking if you had an interest. I'm going to follow up with an email next week out to all of the EMSC grantees asking for them to consider submitting a poster. And then there's some grantees out there who are working on some projects that we think would be really great to share that maybe haven't indicated that they're going to submit a poster, and we may reach out to them specifically and encourage them to consider doing it. And that's not encouraged like the Army. I mean, truly encourage them to do it if they want. They don't have to, of course. So we have some deadlines. So the poster submission portal, which will be a red cap. I'm going to send that out on May 7th to everybody. So, well, I'm sorry, let me back that up. I'll have it ready on May 7th. The link will be in the email I send out May 8th to everybody so that you can come back. And I'm going to build it so that I'm building on one that my colleague Cassidy created to make it easy for you to just fill in each of those pieces that a poster typically covers, the background, the methods, conclusions, data, all that stuff. For those who intend to present a poster, your deadline to commit is going to be June 30th. You'll need to have the draft of your content by July 31st. And that isn't that you have to have a draft to us. We don't necessarily need to sign off on it, although I need to confirm that. HRSA may want to have an opportunity to review, but it shouldn't be any later than July 31st. You should have it printed and in your hand by August 12th. So you can put it in a little poster tube and bring it with you on the plane to the conference. And then set up on site will be on August 22nd. We have some time built into the agenda for folks to go off and do that. And then, of course, we're going to hold a reception. It'll be past hors d'oeuvres, and we'll have a cash bar and have an opportunity to make it as social and fun as we possibly can. And then the final thing I have on here, God bless it, are the additional resources, which is I see a couple of my colleagues from NEDARC are on, which is great. They are going to host a Tech Talk on June 27th, specifically around this poster creation. They're going to talk about how do you set it up in the right aspect in PowerPoint, choosing the right fonts, getting the right colors, how you're going to get things so it's easy to see and read from a distance and up close, how to go about printing your final poster. and how to, and they'll have some templates available for you to use if you wish, and then to put your own information into it. So that's about all I have for you guys. I didn't have a lot of information. I think most of us have a general idea of what a poster presentation is. For those of you who are old hats at this is going to was incredibly boring, and I hope you dropped off. If for those of you who maybe have never done this before and wanted to have an idea of what it could be, I hope this has given you a good overview of that. I'm going to come back and with the refrain of, we were looking forward to just about anything you'd like to share. We really want to take this opportunity to highlight all the work of our grantees, of the EMSC grantees rather, and really promote it at the conference. Get some kudos. Add it to your resume. It's a great thing to add for professional development. The poster will be available electronically. So I need to build that into my process, that I will need a PDF of it for uploading to our electronic guide, our agenda for the conference. Am I right about that, Cassidy? It should be a PDF?
That is correct.
So, and that's the same format you're going to use to submit it to your conference, to whoever's printing it for you as well.
Yeah. And so I will,
go
Terry,
ahead.
this is Cassidy. I'm just going to go back real quick. The scientific poster printing, that's just for our folks who are in super rural areas that may not have access to a UPS or FedEx store, because sometimes they will print and ship, but it depends on your P.O. box, or if you are like a Route 1 kind of person, they may or may not deliver to you. So the scientific poster printing is completely online, and they will ship anywhere.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's a great thing to know. And their average cost is what you cited there?
Yes, that is correct. The scientific poster printing one is probably the most expensive, with your more affordable options being the FedEx and UPS store. Walgreens, some Walgreens will even do it too, but they're quite expensive.
Oh, okay.
They can range into like the 100 to 120 range.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know. Thank you. So as very quick, as I said, very, very, very basic. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions, thoughts? Is there something that you wished I had covered or I hope that I had covered that I didn't? Let me know. Okay. Well then, in that case, I am going to let you guys have the rest of your day back, and I really appreciate you joining me for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.